Welcome. In this video, we will discuss about the National Council for Transgender Person, which has recently been constituted under the Act. So it is basically a statutory body, and it will be a kind of a movement forward to provide the rights to the transgender people, which has been a lot of discussion has been going on. So just a little bit of history. So the transgender bill was one of the few private bills which has been considered for the changes. So government did propose the different bill, but it was the private bill which kind of introduced it, and one of the few private bills which has got the approval. So National Council for Transgender Person has a history of coming from that private bill. So just a history. Now let's go ahead and see what all the functionality of this National Council for Transgender Person will be, who will be included in that, and the other functionalities with related to the council. So the first thing that we have to know is this: it is the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment that has constituted the council. So it will come under the aegis of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. This is the ministry which looks into the disabled and transgender as well. So this is something which has been under the aegis of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It is formed by the Transgender Person Protection of Right Act of 2019, which specifically means that it is going to be a statutory body. Any body which is formed under the act is your statutory body. Any body which has been defined under the constitution is your constitutional body, and any body which is formed by the notification from the executive is called as the executive body. So this is one of the major differentiation that you should be aware of, because at times UPSC has directly in a statement has asked whether this particular body is a statutory one, constitutional one, or an executive one. So I hope that is clear. Now let's also try to see what is its main focus areas are. So it aims to mainstream the transgender community's concerns, focusing on livelihood issues as well as to raise awareness about the trans community, so that transgender persons are accepted within the families and in the larger society. Another aim is to ensure that transgender welfare boards are set up in all states, and essential need of the transgender community like housing, food, healthcare and education are met. So if you have been following news, there was a news regarding the how the Kerala Metro has employed the transgender people over there, but because of the kind of discrimination they felt, they had to resign from the job. So this particular body is specifically tasked to stop such kind of discrimination. It specifically means that upward mobilization of transgender community has to be taken care of. Welfare boards needs to be established in various states. Because of the age-long discrimination against the transgender people, it has become very difficult for them to get the regular job, and they are most vulnerable, one of the most vulnerable section of our society. And because of it, it's important that the state have welfare board so that their basic needs are met. So these are the broader area on which this council is going to focus on and work upon. Now let's also try to see the function of this particular organization. So it will has the function to advise the central government on the formulation of policy. So what kind of policy should be put into place so that the trans community could be safeguarded against the discrimination, and they could be provided with some kind of affirmative action so that they could have the upward mobilization in the society. So such kind of advice would be provided by the council to the central government. Now they will also monitor and evaluate the impact of policy. So their work will not be stopped by just advising the government and government enacting those acts, but they also have to actively monitor and evaluate whether the programs and the various schemes which are working for the trans community, how they are performing well and how they are implemented. So its function is also of monitoring and evaluating. Now reviewing and coordinating activities of all departments. So again, health department, your education department, labor environment, law and order department, all these departments are required to work in coordination, and this particular council will kind of work to review and coordinate the functions within these departments also. So it will act as a link. Redressing the grievances of the transgender person. So if any transgender person has any kind of complaints or grievance, this council will also work for redressing their grievances. now performing such other function as prescribed by the center. So these are the major function which has been like assigned to the council as of now, but in future it has to perform other function also if the central government asks it for. So if it goes for any extension of its function, it could be done by the central government. So these are the major functions of the National Council for Transgender Person. Now let's also try to see the composition. Who will be the chairman? So the chairman will be your Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment. So as mentioned earlier, this council will be under the aegis of your Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and hence the chairman would be the Union Minister. And it will also consist representatives from 5 states or UTs. They are like from various region, north, south, east, west and northeast region, as well as it will have 5 members of transgender community. So if you see on the level of that, the members would be 1 chairman, then it will have 5 members on rotation basis based on region of states in different region, and then it will have 5 members from trans community for the matter of representation. So it's very important that trans community for which the laws would be made or for which this particular commission would be working, it's important that they are also represented in the council. Also, it will have the secretary levels members from the Ministry of Health, Home Minority, my home ministry, minority affair, education, rural development, labor and law, because these are the various sections in which the involvement would be required, so that we could have better policies for against the discrimination of trans community. Now, in addition, there will be members from Department of Pension, Niti Aayog, National Human Rights Commission and National Commission for Women. So, if you look at the composition, it could be seen it is very inclusive. It has representation from trans community, it has representation from Niti Aayog, NHRC, your National Commission for Women. It also has ministry level joint secretary joining in, and at the end of the day, it is being headed by the Union Minister for Social Empowerment and Justice. So this is the basic composition of your council. Now finally, let's also try to understand what was the bill under which this particular act was formed. Like after few deliberation and after few amendments which has been suggested, this bill became the act in 2019. So what were the major provision of the 2016 bill? So this were that it defines the transgender. So first of all, it is very important that the definition for transgender person is defined, because of the variation in how the transgenders want to identify themselves. There was a lot of confusion and ambiguity around it, and hence this bill particularly defined the definition. So it says a transgender person is one who is partly female or male, or a combination of female or male, or neither female or male. So this is how they have broadened the whole horizon and tried to include all the people who could be considered as transgender. Now this also states that person's gender must not match the assigned gender at birth. So it is not important, and it's kind of nullify the fact that what the gender of the person has been defined at the birth is not the one which is they identify themselves with. So that clause has also included in the bill. Every transgender person in the country must obtain an identity certificate, which will be used as a proof of recognition of identity as a transgender person. So basically this identity certificate they have to get. How they will get the identity certificate? It will be granted by the DM. So there will be one screening committee including medical practitioner, including a psychiatrist and other people, and that particularly screening committee would give recommendation to DM, and DM then finally will grant the identity certificate. That identity certificate would be used as a proof that this person is a transgender person, and hence can avail all the benefits associated or provided for the trans community. Now the screening committee will comprise a medical officer, psychologist, a district welfare officer, a government official and a transgender person. So just to make the screening committee more inclusive, a transgender person is also included. Now another thing which very specifically this act talks about, it prohibits discriminating with transgender people in education, employment, healthcare and other areas, and in fact it does provide for punishment. So there is a provision for punishment in case of discrimination against transgender people is recorded. So these are the few major empowering provision of the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill of 2016, which converted into the Act, albeit few amendments, but these are the major provision. So I hope you have understood this video. If you have any doubt, feel free to comment. Thank you.